Good afternoon, Dairyfield, and welcome to the 2020 Veterans Day Assembly. In 1918, on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of the fighting of World War I, the war to end all wars, the fighting ceased and Germany officially surrendered, and November 11th became the universally recognized day of celebration. The day was originally declared Armistice Day and only honored the veterans of that war. However, World War II and the Korean War soon followed, and of course, more veterans needed to be honored. So in 1954, at the urging of major veteran organizations around the country, Armistice Day was renamed Veterans Day to honor all veterans who served our country. So today, we honor all of our veterans who unselfishly placed their lives on the line for our freedom. They were ordinary citizens who answered the call to arms. They left their families, their jobs, their lives, not for recognition and fame, but for a cause greater than themselves. They fought to protect our country and to maintain our way of life. You see, the freedoms that we enjoy are extremely special, and that's why we must defend it. Today, we honor our veterans and remember their great deeds. Let's take a moment to pay our respects to those who have and are currently fighting for our freedom. Thank you. Please welcome to the stage Ashley Hardner, class of 23. Upon graduation from Dairyfield, Ashley has aspirations to join the United States Navy and become the country's first female Navy SEAL. Please stand and join her as she leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now please welcome Mr. Cousinow.
Once again, the best part of the day, taking off the mask, right? Hello, Dairyfield, and good afternoon. So yesterday, Veterans Day, day of observation and recognition for all the women and men who have served and are serving in our armed forces. Veterans Day, a day of acknowledgement for those people. It falls in lines with these other days of observation that we have, like Mother's Day, Father's Day, Earth Day, but this one's a little bit more special. And yet somewhere in there, it sometimes gets pushed to the side. And I'd like to take a moment to think about what the day is really all about and how I'm going to share little stories about how it affects me directly. Thankfully, yesterday, despite a pandemic going on, there were still observations held, very small ceremonies to acknowledge the service of our men and women who are out there. So when we talk about Veterans Day, immediately images of soldiers come to mind, and you might be thinking of various wars, World War II, Korean, Vietnam War, that sort of stuff. And often those images are black and white and become rather, well, we compartmentalize it. We only think about the soldiers in actual venues of war, in areas of war. And yet those people are all over the place. Our active service men and women are a part of our community. I'd like to share a quick story of those people that would actually affect me directly. So right off the bat, just an inner circle of my family, My father served in the U.S. Army. In fact, fun little fact, I was born in Okinawa because he was serving during the Vietnam War out there. My father-in-law was served in the Navy. He was aboard the USS Kitty Hawk. Meanwhile, my brother-in-law, who's in the bottom picture down there, he's serving in the U.S. Air Force Reserves, and he's been deployed 4 times in the last 15 years. And in my room, he actually sent us a gift, well, Dairyfield as a whole, a flag as such. I'll get things around here, flag as such. And this flag, as the certificate speaks to, probably can't see it, but fun certificate, flew over Baghdad International Airport during Operation Iraqi Freedom on May 15th. It was presented to the School of Dairyfield. And it's been sitting in my room up on a shelf, visible, but often missed and not realized what it's all about. So I really thank him for his service and what he's done. Meanwhile, even a little bit closer, my stepson, Adam Pirano, is also serving in the Air Force as a first-class airman. He's right now stationed in Alaska. And finally, there's my daughter, Zoe Cousin, getting choked up. She's at the U.S. Coast Guard Academy right now. She's a 4th-class cadet, and so proud of what she's been able to do there in the first semester, getting through swab summer and whatnot. And she told me the other night on the phone, she's like, "Dad, I'm married to the Coast Guard." Like, you go, girl. So all these examples hopefully show to us really that the people who are serving are actually around us much easier, have bigger effect than you realize. They're out there. It's not just individuals and those images out on the battlefield. We think about some of the slogans that happen and that are associated with the military. For the Coast Guard, it's Semper Paratus, which means always ready. And I think that really speaks to what our servicemen and women have to be, always ready. There's another line that came up. It's like, you don't have a choice. You have to go out, but you don't have to come back. All of these people are really on the front lines and are first responders, and they do the job that needs to be done when none of us realize what's going on. As a quick example, I'll go back to my stepson, Adam Pirano. He, like I said, is stationed in Alaska, and he actually works on F-16 fighters. And his job, along with the rest of the airmen that he worked with, have to make sure those aircraft are ready 24/7. Those planes are always up and ready going. Yet none of us know that, none of us see that, nobody ever sees Adam's job that he's doing. And it's ongoing and relentless, and there's a lot of pressure to it because those planes have to be perfectly ready at the moment's notice. That sort of piece of realizing so many people in and amongst us that we don't even realize that are there are doing jobs we never even think of. As I was putting together notes for today's speech, it occurred to me the movie A Few Good Men with Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson. As you may recall, Colonel Jessup, played by Jack Nicholson, is being challenged on how he cared for his troops. And there's obviously this moment in the movie that is absolute movie legend, where Jack Nicholson's character, Colonel Jessup, is responding to Lieutenant Caffey's question. And it's really, although their exchange was rather contentious, it really speaks to what I wanted you to understand here today. There's so many people doing a job, and we don't even realize it. In the quote of the movie, he says this, and of course, I'm not even going to bother to try and do my imitation of Jack Nicholson, so do your best in your head. He says, open quote, "Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's going to do it? You. I have a greater responsibility than you could possibly fathom. You have the luxury of not knowing what I know. You don't want the truth because deep down in places you don't talk about at parties, you want me on that wall. You need me on that wall. We use words like honor, code, loyalty. We use those words as the backbone of a life spent defending something. You use them as a punchline. I have neither the time nor the inclination to explain myself to men who rise and sleep under the blanket of protection and freedom that I provide, then question the manner in which I provide it. I'd rather you simply say thank you and went about your way. Otherwise, I suggest you pick up a weapon and stand a post." As I said, the exchange was rather contentious, but in there is that really secret, that simple point. There are people doing jobs for us, and we need to be thankful for them. Take a moment and think about all those people who are out there. They are among us, And they're the real heroes, not the athletes, not the actresses, not the actors that we tend to put on pedestals, but those people serving for our country and do it because they want to help make us a better place. So I hope you find a moment to find a heartfelt and deep thank you for all those serving. And remember, they're there for us and we should be there for them. Thank you.
I would now like to welcome to the stage Colonel Dave Grosso, U.S. Army, retired. He graduated from the Derryfield School in 1978. Dave enlisted in the Army in 1980 and served in the Army Rangers and Special Forces for nearly all of his 35-year career. He retired from active service in 2015 and now lives in his hometown of New Boston. Dave has 3 children, 2 of whom are veterans, and 1 is still serving as a soldier.
All right, folks, so we got the packed auditorium here, but I know that people are piping in their classrooms. So I appreciate the opportunity here to speak with Derryfield, and it's great to come back. I love this institution. It did a lot more for me than I gave to it during my time here. As I've told in previous speaking engagements here, I graduated in the top 32 of my class here at Derryfield, and I was out of 35 students, so I had a lot of room for upward mobility in terms of academic prowess and achievement. You know, as Jeff asked me to speak today, I was trying to figure out how could I best approach this topic of honoring our military veterans. And usually, I end up talking about the transition from Armistice Day to Veterans Day, and the historical import of taking one day to recognize our military veterans. Today I'm going to do a little bit different. I'm going to speak a little bit more off the cuff and talk about what it means to us as veterans, what a military veteran is, and perhaps give you some insights just from my perspective and some of the perspective and insights from fellow soldiers on what we want you to understand about us. As a prelude to that, I think some metrics might be in order. There's approximately 1.3 million soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guard personnel on active duty right now. There's about 800,000 of the same in the reserve. So total active duty and reserve strength to the United States military is about somewhere around 2.1 million. All right. that's 2.1 million Americans that are serving under uniform or in uniform. There's about 328 million U.S. citizens right now. So do the math. It's less than 1% that are actually out there securing all of us. And that happens day in, day out. And it's happened through the majority of our nation's history. So as you had so well put, they're out there among us. But there's very few of them that are out there among us. But that doesn't take away from the import of what they're actually doing. And throughout our nation's history, we have relied on the military to safeguard our freedoms and to safeguard our country. And, from a variety of threats. And those threats remain imminent, they remain pervasive, and they remain potent to our way of life. And having spent most of 2001 to 2015 hunting down and trying to capture or destroy those that would destroy our way of life, I can tell you that that threat continues to be pervasive, potent, and imminent. The reasons why people join the military are as varied as the individual soldier, sailor, airman, Marine. I mean, we all have our reasons why, and I'm going to go through some of these reasons. But the big thing that I want to share with you, these are not just my thoughts. These are thoughts that, as I communicate through via Facebook with a lot of the people I served with. And I'm not a big Facebook junkie, but it has provided me an opportunity to share photographs and to cover memories. And so I do appreciate that. And over the last couple of months, a number of us that had served together in various conflicts have just kind of shared back and forth what it means to be a military veteran. And so I want to share some of these things. So these are not all my thoughts. Some of these are my thoughts. But more importantly, they represent the collective body of people I served with in special forces and what we all feel it means to be a military veteran or to understand a military veteran. We left home as teenagers or in our early 20s and trying to become independent, trying to grow up. In my case, I had flunked out of 2 colleges in a row. And I felt I was at the precipice of the great unknown. I was going to fall into the abyss at the tender age of 20. And I knew that I had to get some discipline, some structure in my life that I was personally not capable of doing. And it was no longer my parents' responsibility to do that. So I needed a way out of New Boston, New Hampshire. I needed a way out of what I had not tried to do, which was college. And I was just not really ready for that, discipline-wise. Some people need jobs. Some people need a way out of wherever they're at in life. And then many perhaps are seeking some kind of an unknown adventure. Every veteran loves their country enough to defend it and to protect it with their own lives. We said goodbye to friends, and we said goodbye to family, and we said goodbye to everything we knew. Right? When I can still remember getting in the recruiter's car in January of 1981 and driving away from my parents and from Joe English Road in New Boston. I can still remember that, and that's a long time ago. And I was leaving everything that I had known or knew, and I was going into the great unknown as a young soldier that was aspiring to become an Army Ranger. We learned the basics of the military profession, and then we scattered throughout the world and to the far corners of the world. We found new friends and we found new family. And that is not an overstatement. We found new family, all right? Our service members become our own family because our blood family is back in New Hampshire or back in your home state. They're not geographically, present, and you can only get so much. And we didn't have FaceTime, we didn't have Skype, we didn't have cell phones, we had letters, all right? And that's not any kind of way that you can depend on, to maintain those familial ties. So your service members become your family, and you look at them, regardless of their creed, their color, whatever their background is, as your brothers and your sisters. We had plenty of good times, and then we had some bad times. We certainly didn't get enough sleep. I mean, the military is renowned for its lack of sleep, and I wholeheartedly endorse that, because if you can function on 1 to 2 hours or 4 hours of sleep, then God knows if you get more than that, how well you can do. We often smoked and drank too much, especially the old Army or the old military. I think we're a little bit more wiser now as a service. We picked up plenty of good habits, but we also picked up bad habits. We often worked hard, and we often played harder than we worked. And that was, we approached that off-duty time with a messianic zeal to play harder than we actually worked. We didn't earn a great wage. I believe I was paid my first paycheck $350 a month, which, okay, in 1981, 1980, it's a long time ago, but $350 does not go long, especially when you're basically accountable to work 24/7, 24 hours, 7 days a week. We experienced the happiness of mail call. I mean, just waiting in line or waiting out in formation for just the hope of getting a piece of mail, or in the sadness of missing events. I can tell you that on our deployments, whether it was 3 months or 6 months, a year, or we've had deployments where we were gone for 16 months, we don't time those deployments to conveniently, either get or attend Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, birthdays, weddings. All those life events go on whether we're there or not. We grew up fast, and then sometimes, especially according to some of my brethren and sisters in the military, we didn't grow up at all. And my wife and my children could probably attest to that. I'm a living embodiment that I never really truly grew up at all in some aspects. We didn't know when, or even sometimes if, we were going to ever see home again. And that's the nature of the profession. We fought for our freedom and the freedom of others. The United States military not only secures the freedom and defends our country and our individual freedoms as citizens, but across the world, we also do some incredible work to secure the freedom of others. And there's a lot of people, a lot of citizens in various countries, whether it's the country du jour of Afghanistan, Iraq, you can pick them, and despite the turmoils that have beset and continue to beset those countries, there's a lot of those people that can thank the United States military for the freedoms that they currently enjoy, as well as the opportunity to achieve more in their own lives. Some of us saw actual combat, and some of us didn't. Some of us saw the world, and then some of us didn't. Some dealt with physical warfare and the challenges of that, and then most of us dealt with the emotional and mental aspects and mental pain of either the deployments or the work that we were doing. We've seen and experienced things that we can't fully describe, certainly not in this forum, but not all of our sacrifices were physical. We participated in time-honored ceremonies and events and rituals, and we strengthened our bonds and our camaraderie. One of the biggest things is we counted on each other to get the job done and at times to survive at all. I can tell you, I'm not a big one in telling war stories, but I can tell you that there were times in my professional life where I didn't know if I was going to make it the next 30 seconds or 5 minutes, and that all I had was some dude, I didn't even know his name, but I knew he was an American soldier right beside me in the same trench as we're low crawling under fire in Mosul. And I just looked at him and said, "You okay, man?" He goes, "I think so." I'm like, "Yeah, me too, man. Let's keep on crawling. Let's get out of this, and let's get back to a position of safety." I didn't know who that kid was, but I know that he was an American soldier, and I knew that he was with me, and that with the two of us together, I was willing to take on whatever was needed at the time. We dealt with victory. We've dealt with tragedy. We've often celebrated, and we've often mourned. We lost a few along the way. Those that we lose, we celebrate their dedication, their ultimate sacrifice on Memorial Day. But as the moment of silence today is, they're never very far from my thoughts. The soldiers I served with, and then the soldiers that I lost. When our adventure was over, some of us went home. Some of us started somewhere new, and then some of us never came home at all. We have told amazing and hilarious stories of our exploits and our adventures. We seem to tell the stories about the stuff that was really cool We kind of gloss over the stuff that really sucked, but that's okay, and that's always good. It's always best to talk about the best bar fight you were in, that you actually where you prevailed, versus the ones that you did not do so well in. Yeah, this is politically incorrect, of course, for Derryfield, but that's okay. It's the truth. We share an unspoken bond with each other, and most people will never experience, and that few will understand. And that is not an indictment on the American people. There's no way that you can understand what it means, that bond that we have, because haven't necessarily been there and done that. But that doesn't make us any more special than anybody else. It just means that we've gone through something that very few people get to experience, and very few people understand. And I think that we're all fine with that, because service in the United States military is a voluntary action. None of us are being drafted, right? They used to be drafted, but now it's all volunteer. So you choose to take on, whether you realize what's going to be required of you or not, what's going to be expected of you. We speak very highly of our own service branch, and we poke fun of others. We have an incredible human being here that's going to aspire to become a Navy SEAL. As I was just telling her and Jeff, the Army Special Forces, or Green Berets, we kind of regard our Navy SEAL brethren and future sistren as kind of exuberant, cousins that we are always good to have along on the military operation. But you just got to contain that exuberance and make sure that we maintain focus on the mission at hand. Regardless of the military service branch that we're in, regardless of how much we poke fun of them, we also know that if needed, we can always count on them. And that makes us very unique among the other nations' militaries. There are Special Forces detachment that under my command in Iraq in 2003, who will, if you're a Navy F-18 pilot, you will never buy a beer, whether you served in that theater at that time, because they owe their life to two F-18 Navy pilots that strafed the enemy at hand, allowed the Special Forces detachment, 6 Green Berets and about 150 Kurds, to bound back. And then they put themselves at risk by doing dry strafing to keep the enemy's heads down without delivering munitions. They had exhausted all their munitions. They put themselves and their aircraft at risk to protect these 6 Americans who they didn't know. They had no idea. They had no personal tie, but that was their duty at the time. So we will always be there if needed for our brothers and sisters, and we stand together as one. Being a veteran is something that had to be earned, and it can be never taken away. And I really didn't understand that when I first enlisted. But I had to earn that right to become a veteran, and it can never be taken away. So whether you serve, for 35 years or you serve for 3 years, it's really immaterial, because you served and you sacrificed and you gave up everything that you knew, and you learned a skill, you learned a capability, and you made yourself one of the people that is out there protecting all of us. Being a veteran has no monetary value at all. I mean, I guess you can get like a free cup of coffee on Veterans Day, or maybe restaurants and the great American people are very generous and grateful to. But it's not like you're going to get a huge stipend here for being a veteran. But at the same time, though it has no monetary value, it is indeed a priceless gift. Yesterday, I spent most of my Veterans Day calling or receiving calls from people I served with. And I really don't miss the job that much. I mean, I enjoyed being a soldier, I enjoyed being a leader and a commander, and I enjoyed doing all the things that I got to do over 35 years. But at this point, I really don't miss that, because there's a lot of things that go along with being a commander and a leader. You end up having to write horrific letters when you lose a soldier. But what I do relish and what I do miss is the people I served with, because they're just extraordinary human beings. People see a veteran and they thank them for their service. When we see each other, we kind of look at each other, and we kind of look at each other to give a kind of an upward, like, hey, I think you're a veteran. Yeah, I'm a veteran too. And we kind of exchange a kind of a knowing glance with each other because we know that we've experienced something that maybe perhaps the rest of the people around us don't know that we shared or don't understand what we shared. So from myself to all the veterans that are either out there listening as maybe part of staff and faculty, or to you future veterans, I'm going to commend you in advance for what you're going to do or what you've done and what you're going to sacrifice for our country. It's not an easy job. There was a couple photographs that played during I think the course of this presentation. The first one was a photograph of me in 1985. It was the guy with the extraordinary long neck. I don't know what the heck happened there with that photograph, but you know, I was at tender age of I think 24, 25, going through Special Forces. That was my first Special Forces team. The second picture, there were the blacked out faces, was a team that just before I went into Afghanistan for the second time in 2 years in 2011. But the last photograph, and I can't tell if it's being currently displayed or not, but I want you to take a look, if it does come up on the screen, is a picture of two soldiers sitting on the ramp of their MRAP. It's a big, huge military vehicle. I want you to take a look, if you can see the resolution of the picture, look in their eyes. Look at how tired they are. Look at the look on their face. This is a picture of two veterans from circa 2018, as I remember it, in Afghanistan. And that isn't a picture of me, but that Grosso is Sergeant Grosso, my son. Why I picked that photograph is that he was 20 years old at that time. He's not that far off in age from all of you. But look in his eyes, look at that young man, and I don't even know what the other soldier's name is. But that right there, to me, resonated. That's what a veteran looks like. Not the dudes, like me standing up here. Oh, I am a veteran. But look in the eyes of those kids, and I say kids with a great deal of reverence for them, because at the relatively tender age of 20, they're out there making sure that all of us are safe. So in closing, I would say, as a military veteran, we really do try to remember the good times, and then we try to make peace with the bad times, for however we want to characterize those bad times. But it means a great deal to all of us as veterans when our nation continues to honor the service of its military, and that you take time at either the individual or the collective level to honor our service members. So thank you for that, and God bless this nation. Thank you.
Like Colonel Grosso just stated, Veterans Day is primarily a tribute to America's living veterans and should be observed more as a celebration rather than a somber remembrance. However, it is appropriate to pay our respects to those who gave their lives to their country. Join me in a moment of silence as we play the extinguishing of lights, also known as taps. As we conclude today's assembly, remember that this is just one day set aside each year to honor the brave men and women who have served and continue to serve our nation. But in my opinion, it's not enough. I would ask, as you observe Veterans Day, understand that the spirit of the celebration is more than a day off from school or time spent in this assembly, a parade, or a memorial service. The defense of freedom is not free, and our veterans need our help. I would encourage all of you to find ways to involve yourself in caring for those that bear the physical, emotional, and psychological scars of war. Get to know them and let them know that you're there to help. This is especially important during this time of social distancing and isolation. Sometimes just sitting down to engage with a veteran or their family members can go a long way. Call, email, reach out online. No matter what medium you decide to use, just find a way to connect. Thank you for honoring our veterans today. Let us walk toward tomorrow, still honoring them by living in the freedom that they protected. Seniors.